My name is Elaina Watley. I am a multi-franchisee of Amazing Lash Studio. I am based in New Jersey, and I also have a location in California. I think what makes me successful as a multi-unit franchise owner is having systems that are scalable and processes and procedures that we follow for best practices. For all of my locations, we fundamentally run off of the same systems. How we track our leads, lead cadences, which leads to new prospects, how we manage our HR systems, how we conduct our payroll, how we do our scheduling for our front desk, pay structure is all the same. It allows us to really figure out what best practices work, which ones don't, and then we implement them across all 5 locations. So what's important for me is scalability, and so that your profitability is scalable across all businesses, and that the bigger you grow, you're not sacrificing your profitability or your scalability by doing different things in different businesses. I'm able to train all of my managers and all of the staff in the same way. So I have more use of my time. It's used more efficiently because as an owner, 5, 6 locations coming up, 2 in development. You can't be in 8 places at once, but running the same systems and having the same operational plan does allow me to be scalable. I have so much advice for other franchisees that want to grow their portfolio. I originally started out and purchased one location. I was afraid to purchase multi-units. I, thought that this was just kind of like one thing that I wanted to do. I didn't know if I wanted to have multiple locations, and that was probably my biggest mistake. Looking back, I wish that I would have bought, 10 locations and been able to really own the region. But I think that's me saying that after being successful in one location. My advice for franchisees that are interested in multiple locations is to really sort of analyze your market and analyze what other locations could be important to your business to help grow. So I have businesses that are 3 and 4 miles away from each other, and normally we would say that that's a competition. It's competing with your original location. But to be honest, these locations have been complementary. I'm able to have overflow in other studios. Our clients go back and forth between the studios based on, where they are and what their availability is. The demographics are a lot different too. Even though you have locations that are close to each other, demographically, the demographics are different, so the client behavior is different. So having locations in different areas helps you to really understand the consumer, and then really helps you to tailor your best practices and your marketing based on the consumers and the demographics that you're in. For franchisees that are looking to grow, my advice would be to pay attention to your profit and loss statements. Look at how you're running your operations. Work with your franchisor to get the benchmarks and figure out what best practices are tied to those benchmarks so that you can make business decisions that will help you to get as closest to the benchmark as possible so that you can see profitability. And then figure out what those best practices are so that, one, you'll have super strong P&L statements and you can get financing. I personally do get finance through the SBA when I do my new businesses. For me, I think it's important to reserve equity and cash capital that I do have because it allows me to have more cash to invest into new opportunities. But the important thing is that you have to have a strong P&L. So getting ahead of your P&L and staying as close as you can to your benchmarks, working with your franchisor to figure out what those benchmarks are, how can you run your operations tighter, is really, really important. And then I would say, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to have multiple licenses. If you're doing great with your one location, you'll do great with 3. And I know it sounds like it's scary, but it's amazing to be able to control an entire area and build a consumer around what you've created and the best practices and your fundamental principles. So before I invested in Amazing Lash Studio, I actually traveled the United States. I went to every single lash franchise that there was before I invested in Amazing Lash Studio. I stumbled across an Amazing Lash Studio in Houston, Texas. I got my lashes done there. I love the experience. I love the aesthetic. I thought it was great. I reached out to the regional developer, and then I started speaking to owners across the country, learning about what their experience was opening, what their best practices were. I really immersed myself in lashes. I started watching YouTube channels, tutorials, looking at the ecosystem in terms of cosmetologists and estheticians. At the time that I invested in Amazing lashes were not at the forefront of beauty just yet. If everyone was like, "You're investing in lashes, what's that?" And I had been getting my lashes done for 7 years at that point. So really just kind of studying the industry and seeing where it was going, what was innovative, what was next. I interviewed my franchisor and I spoke to the CEO and the president, the vice president, the director of marketing in my franchise day, when I was able to ask questions like, where's the growth of the business going? Where do you have plans? Like, how can I be a part of whatever committees or boards that exist so that I'm at the forefront of what the franchise is doing? I made sure that I asked every single question. I went to Discovery Day in Arizona. I got my lashes done multiple times. I was a member at a studio so that I can see how the practice and how the business was being run and what the client experience felt like, so I knew what to change or what to duplicate. I think it's really important to do as much research as you can and to really lean on the franchisor to give you the information and the research that it is that you're looking for so that you can make an informed decision. Because the great thing about being a franchisee is that you have the franchisor and they have so many best practices and so many amazing things that they can teach you. I absolutely love Amazing Lash French as a franchisor, the entire WellBiz team that we work on, our director of operations, marketing, training. Like, we have such an amazing team at Amazing Lash and such an amazing support group as a franchisee. Even for me, my studio was in the top 5 for multiple years in a row, and I still call the franchisor, director of operations, and have weekly or monthly calls when I have questions. So really just interview your franchisor and ask as many questions and use them for support. So my advice for franchisors to attract more franchisees like myself is to really tell success stories. I think there's not a PR, public relations, motivational, inspirational, aspirational stories, podcasts, clubhouse hangouts, really being interactive and using success stories of franchisees that are in the market to attract other franchisees. I think that, franchisees are looking to for those success stories. They're looking to speak to someone that looks and feels and sounds like them, someone that's inspirational and aspirational. I think franchisors should tell those success stories using more like media platforms, I would say, where, whether it's Instagram or, Facebook or podcast, like I said, just to like really get the word out from successful franchisees about the business. And I think that if other franchisees or potential franchisees see other successful franchisees, they're going to be more apt to say, wow, I want to do that. That success story was inspirational, was aspirational. And so I would suggest that franchisors do that. I think, Amazing Lash Studios franchisor does an amazing job at discovery days, walking you through every single step, site development, marketing, they do an amazing job. So I think I would suggest that franchisors really, really walk potential franchisees from A to Z, not just purchasing the license and real estate development, but site development, marketing, best practices, Franchise University, which is Amazing Lash Studio does, which new franchisees get to enroll in and learn everything about the business for 5 days, and it's amazing. And we can send our managers to Franchise University. I think having continuing education platforms are really important. So I would really advise franchisors to use media platforms, to have continuing education, and to really, really make sure that all of the details from not just purchasing license to real estate development, but all best practices are shared and that they're in constant contact with potential franchisees.